myself real quick. My name is Anita Alexander. You can address me as Anita. I'm the Vice President for Engineering at Providence, and I'm focused on healthcare intelligence. For people who are not very familiar with Providence, we are a massive healthcare system spread across 7 states in the western United States, starting with Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California, Texas, New Mexico, and Montana. We operate over a network of 50 plus hospitals, 1,000 plus ambulatory sites, and our clinical network has 300,000 plus doctors and 300,000 plus nurses. And in India, Providence Global Center is set up to accelerate healthcare transformation. We are here to enable tech-led healthcare innovation. We are 1,400 and counting. And in this, I'm really proud to say that 37% of our women, of our caregivers are women, and 47% of our leadership roles are held by women. And mind you, this is not by accident, this is by design, because we are very intentional about setting up platforms and programs that help us attract, retain, groom, and grow talent that is diverse in a very consistent manner. A very good example is Thrive, which is an award-winning platform. This is Providence, India's return to work platform, which offers 6 months on-job internship for women who are returning to work after a break. I would strongly encourage you people to stop by and check us. Okay, now we all prove the hypothesis that we all have something to do with the healthcare data. We'll move on. Okay, why DEI is critical? As I alluded to, right? If I ask the same question, maybe in another 2 years, not only the number of hands will go up, but also the amount of gadgets and applications and the sophistication is also going up, right? Think about this as the volume and the variety of data that's coming in. It takes the entire village to ride this wave of disruption. So what does that mean? That means that we absolutely cannot leave out people in pockets and then try to solve the world hunger. So we're going to move on, and you'll have to excuse me as I drink some water. Still getting to understand as a Bangalorean why Bangalore is so hot. Okay, we all know that data can tell us stories. But what if the story is about life-saving outcomes? What if we are able to understand disparities in a mammography rate for a particular region or a community, and as a result, we are able to address that very quickly through education and follow-up? What if the data is helping us get a patient a doctor's appointment on time? What if it's helping one of our relatives from ending up in the emergency department? What if it is helping someone really reduce the length of their hospital stay? What if we can help doctors attend to more patients because we have a way to really look at the intent of the messages that they are getting and club it with clinical context so that they don't have to go through a massive number of messages. Just to give you a sense, any guess how many messages at an average our clinicians get every month? Let me make it easier. In the order of hundreds, order of thousands, what do you think? How many people think order of thousands? Yes, it's 700,000. Okay, so if you think about these, aren't these very powerful stories? And these powerful stories also require for us to really think about what are we doing towards inclusion. It's a tall calling for us all to be inclusive, ensure that we are representing the diverse population and the diverse set of communities that we are serving. So we need to look and feel like them. And most importantly, use data to point out and address equity gaps. So many of us would be familiar with this quote, but this really sinks into me when I walk through a hospital corridor. Many of us would have walked through hospital corridors for one reason or the other, right? And in the process, we become the consumers of and contributors to healthcare data. Now, I have the opportunity to work through Providence hospitals, and every time I come back very humbled. As a data leader, it doesn't just give me a sense of the complexity of the data or the large longitudinal data sets that we have to deal with, but it also really drives into me the point that if we are able to get this data through democratization and give actionable insights into the hands of the decision makers at the right time, it is a huge win. And this also underlines the fact that we have to be very, very intentional about how this data is collected. How is it standardized? How is it managed? How are we analyzing this data and how are we reporting the data? So now we prove the hypothesis. We are all people connected to healthcare data one way or the other. We are all very intentional about DEI. So I'm hoping that you'll stay with me and appreciate when we are going through a few user scenarios that really tells us what happens when people are really intentional about DEI come together to look at the bright possibilities in the healthcare world. I'm really, really proud to kind of share with you here that more than a quarter of the top US hospitals for patient experience falls under the Providence umbrella. That is something that we are really proud of. Now, when we talk about patient experience, what does this mean? This means that it encompasses a large array of interactions that the patients will have across the healthcare system, right? Which means, think about the volume of data that's flowing. There are multiple surveys across multiple service lanes, and there will be written text on it. And this written text can be in multiple languages. So really taking this data, doing a survey analytics on this to narrow down to areas that we really have to improve on is a worthy use case that many of us can resonate with here. Coming to think about clinical excellence. Imagine a patient going to the hospital and they're experiencing a very smooth flow from admission to discharge. If we have advanced understanding of the patient's arrival, the type of treatment, the length of stay in the hospital for them, if it's for surgery, the post-surgery care that the patient will need, the discharge requirements, if we are able to understand all of these in advance, the clinical operations team can really ensure that they are prepared and they can have a very smooth flow and also look at transferring patients across a service area where there is a possibility of a bed if the facilities are like overflowing, right? Now, when we think about AI, time series forecasting, decision trees, and large language models really have the potential to give us this predictive indication of what we can do. And if you think about it as a patient or somebody that's a caregiver for a patient, this not only improves your confidence in the health system, it improves your patient experience. And it also, to a big extent, helps us to look at the resources that we have across the clinics to use it more efficiently. So ideally, what we are doing is we are stretching that capacity to cover more patients. And we absolutely are not going to wind down without talking about one topic. Any guesses? This is the most spoken about thing. No conversation starts or ends without it. Gen AI. So we are getting there. LLMs that can help us ask questions and get answers in a very conversational way, like how two people are talking, without necessarily having a technical background, is not only transformative, this is truly an enabler of democratization. Now, in Providence, we've been making a lot of investments. Just to give you a glimpse of our ecosystem, a lot of our data is accessible today because we've made significant investment in our cloud ecosystem. We have cloud-based ERP. Our electronic health records are all unified. For a massive organization like ours, that is a big investment. And we've also invested in our data platforms so that it is easy for us to discover, to trust, and to use our data. Now, what does this really mean, right? This gives us the capability to deliver outcome that is significant both in the business as well as clinical use cases. Now, coming to think about Gen AI, where we started this. We are able to actually roll out Gen AI use cases very safely, in a responsible manner at scale. And a good example of that is in December 2023, we rolled out Providence Chat. So Providence Chat is a way for all our caregivers. We have close to 120,000 plus caregivers. All 120,000 plus caregivers can now access Gen AI very privately without having to send the data outside the network or share it with tech companies. When we were playing the video, if you had paid attention, there was a promise around Ease My Way. So for an organization as big as 120,000 caregivers, what does it mean to really get them to know what generative AI is? How do we ease their way into generative AI? And this particular platform is helping us really do that. And very relevant to the topic that we're discussing today on inclusion. Right? This is a platform that helps everybody, regardless of what background they're from, to not only leverage the platform, but in the process, really look for a sweep all-in mechanism to get all ideas so that we know what lands significantly and then how can we further invest in that. So if I were to bring this all together, right, and also layer this with DEI, we will soon realize that it is a no-brainer because however smart our solution is, or fancy the technology is, unless it is being used, it is not powerful. And for it to be used, we really have to weave this into the workflows of people who will use and benefit from it. Which means we cannot sit on our ivory towers and say, hey, I'm a technology expert or I'm an operations expert and then I will build a solution, roll it out. We really have to be out there in the field. We have to understand the sentiments. We have to really understand what works in the workflow, what kind of information is needed ahead of time. And we also want to know where do our caregivers really want technology so that we can augment it and enhance the time that they can apply their human experience to. So as we kind of wind this down, I want to leave a few nuggets for us, all leaders here, to think about and to ponder and to self-examine, right? One is, if you are a data leader or if you have anything to do with data, which I think all of us now have, it is important to examine how are we collecting this data, how are we standardizing it, how are we managing this data, analyzing and reporting it. The second is to really see if there is a bias in the system. And is that bias kind of trickling down into the technical solutions that we are implementing? Now, we saw one use case. How do we reverse it? use technology to then point out bias. Really look at different mechanisms that you can use in technology to really see, hey, is there a segment or a community that we are really not addressing? Using data to point that equity gaps and address them real quick. And the most important one is the people and culture. As leaders, we might all be very intent about bringing an inclusive culture, but unless we create an environment where people can speak up, people can say, hey, we are not walking the talk, it'll fall apart. So as leaders, have we creating that ecosystem where people can really speak up and hold each other accountable so that we are making DEI a way of working. I'll switch the gears a little. I am a restarter myself. I was hired back into the workforce after a lot of struggle, of course, when a leader saw the potential in me more than I saw it in myself. Now, two things here. One is this leader is a woman, and the second is we were expecting our first baby when I was hired. In this example, as well as in many things during my job change promotions, I've always been blessed with an ecosystem that supports me when I'm going through this entire turmoil of emotions, when I need that escape velocity to come out of my own emotions, doubts, and attributions. Now, my hope is that I'm really able to pay it forward. I so resonate with this quote, I am because we are. So that is a reminder for me to use data to tell these stories very responsibly. Okay, I need to get better with multitasking. Let's see. Can we move this? Okay. So, I also want to continue that into a testimony or an interview we got from one of our Thrive associates, who's also a full-time employee now with us. And according to her, Thrive is a very, very unique program which she felt very privileged to be a part of. And she went on to say that the most nourishing or memorable experience that she had with Thrive was when she was able to spend time with other Thrive associates and also learn from women leaders from diverse skills and experience. This really drives home the point of having a tribe of your own, because our stories might be very different, right? But just knowing that we are not alone in that story changes your entire narrative in the head. She also went on to say that the leadership support that she got from Providence India really helped her assimilate back to work after a career break. Now, if you're somebody like me who's looking for escape velocity, or if you're somebody like our Thrive associates who want an awesome journey through the platform as you come back to work, please do not fail to stop by our booth, and you will learn a lot there about the awesomeness that this platform brings. With that, I really, really want to thank all of you here, and here's to paying it forward and creating an environment where DEI is the way of working. With that, I'm going to stop here and take any questions you might have.